So tonight is a personal film for me. Um, it's a somewhat cheesy 80s dark fantasy called A Never-Ending Story that deals with a lot of themes that face us as human beings. Fantasy and fear and how we create the world. It's got psychological component, a philosophical component, even a political component. And it's one of the films that, however long ago it was that we did episodes on the films that define us, it's one of the ones that I went back to that I said, there's something in there that speaks to me. And so I mentioned it, and I mentioned some of the themes in that episode. And so we're going to go back into that aspect tonight. So 1984, Wolfgang Petersen, Never-Ending Story. Rick, you had never seen this.
Mm-hmm.
How did it slip by you?
84, I would have been about 10. And the only way I can think of it is I've never been a big fan of fantasy, with the exception of The Wizard of Oz, which kind of is thrown at you and pushed on you, and it's every Easter at that time in the 80s. It was every Easter. My sister was in love with it, so I watched that, and then later on, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen because of Gilliam and his ability to create these worlds. Those are two of the only standout fantasy films that I can remember embracing. And I think there was something about this that was too kiddie at around the time that I would have been, like I said, I would have been about 10, 11 years old. And, you want to project a different version of yourself. So you want to get away from, which is strange coming from somebody who loved the Muppets and a lot of that kind of thing. But there was something about this that was just a little bit too, from the commercials, it was a little bit too sweet. So I never made time for it, and I don't remember it being in great rotation on HBO or any of the other cable channels when I was a kid. So when it did come out, I was, it got to a certain point where I was just like, I was just a little bit too old for it. So I was excited about seeing it. And it's weird because I think there's a really good movie here. But I think, because I love the ideas, I love what it's trying to say. The problem is that I'm coming at it too late in my life. I'm coming at it with too much cynicism and too much of a
grown-up's mentality, probably.
Well, not so much. You know what it is that really bothers me is that I don't like child actors because they're not professional. They're not. In some cases, they're very good at being able to capture that innocence and that kind of sweetness. But line readings typically are difficult for young actors because they're trying to convey emotions that I don't think that they fully understand, or that they're overdoing it. So there's a lot of there's a lot of overacting. There's a lot of it's difficult for me to sell out to it. And in this case, Barrett Oliver as Bartian, is that the framework of the story? That kid and Atreyu, the young warrior, neither of them seem very believable to me.
Yeah.
But I love the story, and I love the world that's created. In particular, I love the giant rock monster because that they bring that character to life. I've always loved puppeteering. I've always loved being able to sell out to the idea of a creature that you know is not real being performed in such a way as to make you believe that there is life there. So that rock creature really pulled me in for a moment, and there was something about the beauty of the swamp of sadness, or
Sadness.
yeah, that I thought was really powerful. And I had heard about this scene, but it should have hit me a lot harder than it did. So sadly for me, it's a hell of a thing watching a movie when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and seeing it when you're in your 50s. It's just not going to have the power. But
sometimes you have to have the right,
yeah,
before you start, I'm cutting in, but sometimes you have to have, like, it has to be the right timing and
yeah,
the right combo, you know what I mean?
it's
Like
a combination of
and old.
yeah,
Yeah.
the young, the old, the where you are in your life and what you're looking at, how you're processing the story, because the story I think is wonderful. I love the idea um, of a kid being drawn into a book and the book having the power to almost write itself based on the experience of the reader. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think that the movie, being a German production, didn't have the budget that it needed in order to make this world real. Um, Part of the problem is that I don't feel like Fantasia is ever a real enough place to to have this foreboding danger of loss. Uh, you don't see enough of it, and you don't see the people that make up this world. So it's that's a little bit of a problem. Um, I think it's actually a major problem that makes you, but the idea of nothingness coming over and destroying a world, because basically isn't that what we're going through on it? Isn't that the fucking first hour of conversation that we had before we even got on the fucking microphone? Um,
Every week.
every fucking week, yeah. Um, so I see a better picture here, but I also see a film that in 1984, it's very possible I would have fallen in love with this film then and overlooked. I could have seen myself as that kid, and I would have found myself wanting to read that book in a school attic as the storm swirls around me and becomes greater and greater based on what I find myself reading. I love that idea. Execution, on the other hand. So the question becomes: this is something that is personal to you.
Yeah.
Number one, how old were you when you saw it? Did you see it on TV? Did you see it in a theater? And
I only saw it on TV.
okay, so what was it about it? What was it about it that how old were you, and what was it about it that really?
I was probably like 6.
Mm-hmm.
This is the fascinating part, because as we talked about it and as I was watching it again, I've never seen this film in a theater.
Mm-hmm.
I never rented this movie.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm now I'm asking myself, how did I even? What is it? Not what is it about it, but what? When we were doing the episode on the films that define us,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why did I pick this film? Because it's not something that I would have, that I think that I would have fucking like pulled out of the hat. Like,
Well, it's definitely not something that screams Ibrahim. It doesn't. But there is something about the idea the idea of the story is very much you. I see that.
Meaning,
So,
we go into that so we can explore. from the outside, from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, if I break it down like an amateur psychiatrist, is the desire to have purpose in life, the desire for there to be artistic meaning. For us, it's artistic meaning. For us, it's I think guys like you and I long ago figured out that expression is probably the greatest, the most defining aspect of who we are. When people talk about the meaning of life, I think they get caught up in the idea of what it is to be human, when the truth is, it's the meaning of each of our lives, each of our individual lives. For you, it's about creating, creating stories, or at least creating these images that speak to your vision of the world, whether that's political, personal, all of those factors, because it all blends into itself, and it all becomes a story that you're telling, whether it's a fictional story, or it's a fictionalized story of your life, or a matter of artistic expression that you feel conveys something about you. I think that's the true artist. That's when we're able to put something out there, regardless of how it's received, that speaks to the honesty within our soul. And you got to remember, I've seen two of your productions, and watching them, I thought, this is something that very much speaks to who he is as a man, as a friend, as an artist. So all of that is rooted in the idea of books, and for children at least, fantasy, because it's all make believe. It's all creating these worlds. So whereas it might seem, like you said, a little bit cheesy and very, very childish, we were all children at one point, and we all embraced this idea. I think it's fair to say that we all embraced this idea of a world that we would either like to create, or a world that we would like to live in. And these type of films, whether it's for you, The Never Ending Story, for me, Munchausen, for both of us, Star Wars, and then you could take everything that feeds into that, Star Wars with foreign, specifically Japanese culture, samurai culture. When you're a reader, the world expands, and the imagination takes, I think, a certain element of expansiveness, and you're able to create something that you wish you were a part of, or at least could engage in more physically. You've done it by traveling. I travel through the movies. That's my take on. That's my long-winded, convoluted, and pointless take on it.
No, I think that's fascinating. I think, I mean, as I was saying, I don't carry around this movie and say like, oh, this is such a formative movie for me, type of thing. But something made me, like I said earlier, pick this out of the hat when we were doing the films that defined us, and then I watched it. And then we talked about those films, including this one. And now, I watched it again, because in that viewing, it had been years and years and years since I had seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen it since we talked about it, so I watched it recently, and then I look at it now, and I'm like, yeah, it makes so much fucking sense to me. That more sense to me than I think it ever made before, more on a conscious level. That I would that such a movie would not only grab me, but that maybe on some level I identified with the character more than even I realized as a kid. So much so that maybe I just took it for granted. You know what I mean? Maybe I was just
Absolutely,
kind of
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, and it was, yeah, because I never had that like, oh shit, that's me. Like I never had that. I never had that light bulb go off, or I think it's me, or I relate to this kid, or that kid is like me. Um, I or and if I did, I don't remember that. It checks off the fucking like the bookstore, the the idea of being like, yeah, bundled up reading some book that's like creeping me out, but at the same time I'm like super into it, and like you see the fucking skulls and the fucking skeletons and all that bullshit in the background in this yeah, like the school attic that you described. And the kid on a certain level is like, it's one of those archetypes of you have a kid who's all, his head is in the clouds. He's like misunderstood kind of kid, shy, awkward. Maybe it's like there are kids who like math and science, and there's the stereotype, and then there are kids who like English or whatever, and the kids who like English, they like to read books and they like stories or whatever. And then there are kids who are more athletic. And obviously, these are like these people get lumped into, oh,
Yep.
you're that kid, or that's that kid. But a lot of times you see those patterns, and certain of those kids, they get bullied or they get picked on or whatever, and then either they continue to get picked on or at a certain point they don't. And the idea of recent watching it this time, and it was just like this idea of like, oh, he's just a kid. And that was like a real big thing for me when I was a kid. Like that was like a trigger, fucking like. And I was very much as a kid like, I can't fucking wait to grow up. Like there's the normal element of like, I can't wait to grow up so I can do shit, which I think we all feel. We want to do cool things. We want to be able to just go, not ask permission. We want to have like, oh, I want to, when I'm an adult, I'm gonna have money, and like all these lies.
Yeah.
and then we're not gonna have to ask permission. And so an extension of that, which is personal power and agency, an extension of that is like, well, I'll be able to do more things. I'll be able to, people will pick on me also. There's that aspect. And then you keep extending it further, and it's like, I'll be able to have more of an impact on the world. There's that. You keep taking it further and further and further out. And then I can not only like influence the world, I can help create the world. Which on some level, that's what as adults we struggle with, is like, we're faced with a world that exists. We grew up in this world, we're formed by it, but we're also pushing up against it. And it's like, how much of it are we creating versus how much of it are we reacting to? And if you don't like the way the world is, that's the drama is trying to affect it while it affects you. And these themes of this kid is being his dad, John McRaney, his character is widower, and he's just like sits the sun down over breakfast. He's a latchkey kid, and he's just kind of like, all right, before I go to work, and we have to have a fucking talk. Like, you have to do your math homework, blah blah blah. Goodbye. And the kid gets picked. He's like chased by some like little bullies. Goes into a bookstore. There's a mean fucking bookshop owner who's like, "Get out of here! I don't like kids."
Which could be us as well. That's
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Because that bookseller knows.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that bookseller is that kid. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Grown up. And so in this sense, he's like the guru, he's the mentor, he's the Yoda. And those, going back to Buddhism, and you see it in stories, Fight Club, even like even though that's like not necessarily the mentor that you want, that's your crazy alter ego. It's like, no, go away. But you have to keep pursuing like the quest or whatever. And so he's like, this is a different kind of book than the ones you like. The kid borrows the book, goes to school, but hides and reads the book and gets sucked into this story. And soon you see these themes, which in this kind of format, I think they hit you a little bit like in a very obvious way. But as an adult, when you look back, you're going like, fuck, like, this shit's for kids, but it's not. Like, it's actually like, this shit, as they say, like, it still hits. The idea of like, you're on a quest, but you have to go alone. So, I mean, you do have your friends. You gather these friends around you on your fucking quest, but it's like that, it's your quest. And you have to go alone. At some point, you're going to have to cross the swamps of sadness. And if you let the sadness take you, it will swallow you down completely. And along that path, you're going to see other people and beings that you love are also going to like die along the way. And it's going to fuck you up. And it's okay for you to feel bad about all of that because, of course, but you cannot let it overtake you to the point that it swallows you down. I mean, that's a lesson that like we still like have to apply. And in the background, like you described when you said, like, you know, the conversation that we had an hour before we start recording, they're in this world of Fantasia, which is the world of the book that the kid is reading. There is this idea of this all-consuming darkness that's spreading. And as it spreads, it overtakes parts of the land and makes those parts disappear. And it's in the north, in the south, on all sides. And it's called the Nothing. And the whole point of the quest is that this heroic kid, Atreyu, is trying to go on this quest to save Fantasia. And he has to go through his trials of the hero's journey. And so now he has to find the wise one, this Morla, this turtle, who's lived for thousands of years. And so along our journeys, we're going to meet these people who are supposedly like very wise or very smart or very experienced. And Morla the turtle says, like, at this point, nothing matters. It doesn't matter. Just give up. How many times have we seen these people throughout our lives that we looked up to them, or we thought that they had this perspective that we'd be able to gain wisdom from, and we end up like, it's kind of like, to me, it's this like the idea of like, don't meet your heroes type of shit, because sometimes it's kind of like, whoa, like that's where you're coming from. And you know, it's also the idealist kind of like, really, like But at the same time, it's also like, be careful that we don't become that fucking person who's like, oh, I'm so fucking smart. I'm so experienced. I'm so wise. I'm so cynical. Like, I'm cynical because I don't let anything fool me. I don't, not even my own hopes and dreams. I'm so cynical that I'm not going to put, like, not only am I not going to put all my eggs in one basket, I'm not going to put my eggs in any fucking basket because I don't want to be disappointed. And at least, you know, it's that pessimistic thing of like, at least if you expect the worst, you'll never be surprised. And it's kind of like, oh yes, you will. Like, if the last decade has taught us anything, it's like it gets worse, which is a pessimistic response to that pessimism.
Yeah.
So it's this creature's like, fuck it, like nothing, give up. And are you going to give up? The kid continues on his journey, and he meets this old couple of gnomes that I was telling Leslie. I was like, oh, it's like fucking us too, you know? Like, Leslie and I don't talk to each other that way, but like, the guy's some old gnome with his fucking like notebooks and all this bullshit, and then she's like with her fucking potions and stuff. And in order to reach the Southern Oracle, he's had to go far and wide, and along the way, he just happened to encounter like a buddy, who is a luck dragon, and that luck dragon kind of gives him a sense of optimism, and we need that. We need to stumble upon that.
Yeah.
He gets to the first oracle. I mean, the oracle gate, and the lesson of that oracle gate is that in order to pass that barrier, it's these two sphinxes that their eyes open and they'll shoot laser beams at you if you cross. But you have to feel your own worth, to truly feel your own worth in order to cross. So, I mean, I don't know if, you know, when you're watching it as a kid, to me, these are like cool lessons. I mean, it should be, everyone should see that, because it's like, how much of it like slips through when you're watching a kid, how much of it like gets in. But even the parts that get in, it's like, well, pretty soon that message will be diminished by your journey. Your journey yourself will diminish that message, because let's say when you start getting pimples, you know, you're like, fuck, like, oh man, like pimples, blah, blah, blah. And then then you need glasses or whatever, however it works. So then, you know, we're talking about fucking like, I was saying like, yeah, my hair at the top and the back is not it right now. You know, the like would that laser beam hit my little fucking thinning spot on the back, because it's affecting, is it affecting my self-worth or whatever bullshit. And the second, and there's this knight tries to cross, he gets blasted, and the little old man gnome is just, or I think it was him who basically says like, fancy armor, like that's not enough.
Yeah.
The second gate is the magic mirror gate, and you have to face your true self. And he describes that kind people find that they're cruel. Brave men discover that they're cowards, and that people run away screaming once they see who they really are. Like, these are like super, they seem obvious, but these are super powerful lessons that are not only for children, even for fucking like human beings throughout our lives, that we need to reintegrate these lessons and deal with them. Finally, he reaches the end point, or the boundary of Fantasia, is the sea of possibilities. So it's like, what's your limit? What's possible for you? And beyond, like, this is this is that frustrating balance between, like, systemic shit, which is a definite literal border or ceiling or wall for people that we all have to deal with when we live in a world where there's a class system, etc. But at least in our desires and in what we want, like, there's the literal wall that you can't cross, or the literal border that you can't cross, or whatever it is. But there's also, like, if the wall wasn't there, what is our level of, like, learned helplessness? Would we, if it was open, like, would we try to cross? Like David Mamet, for all his bullshit, right wing shit that his transformation, whatever, his evolution to that. In his masterclass, I've mentioned this, I don't know where, in what episode, but he does talk about, it's as if there's a line of writers, or, apply it however you're going to apply it. There's a line of people, and you're trying to get through, let's say, like a customs line. This is my interpretation of what he's saying. And off to the side, there's a door, and it says, "Do not enter." He encourages whoever's viewing the master class, whether you see it as a "do not enter" or "do not" or "not an exit." I don't remember, but it's like forbidden to go through that door. But if you go through that door, it's another way. But you have to go through it. And so, this is the end of his masterclass. He's already given all these lessons in screenwriting, playwriting, and screenwriting, and he's moved. He's like stifling tears. Like, you can really, it's not bullshit. And he's like, his throat is tight, and he says, "I want you to get out of that line, and I want you to go through that door." That's how he says it, and that's kind of like where you are when you reach this, like, sea of possibilities. Because in this movie, in this cheesy 80s dark fantasy movie, Fantasia is the world of human fantasy. And it's made up of the dreams and hopes of humankind. But the thing is that people have begun to lose their hopes and forget their dreams. And therefore, this thing, the nothing, a type of despair. Remember in The Exorcist, which is another film that made me, when they're sitting in the steps, and Father Damien is talking to Father Karras, and he's like, the devil or this thing wants us to despair. That's what it wants. And it's going to lie, but it's going to mix lies with the truth. You can't give in. It's the same thing to me. And this nihilism that, Nietzsche talked about, it's the nothing. Nihilism is nothingism. And there's this creature that's after the hero, and it's called the Gmork, and it's this, like, big ass, like, wolf. Mm-hmm. It's this big stuffed animal looking wolf. And it's the servant behind the power of the nothing. And there's this scene. And the Gmork doesn't realize that Atreyu is the hero because he's just a kid. So in that sense, it's kind of like there's the hero's journey, and then there's the fool's journey of the tarot. If you look at the tarot is a complicated thing, but the first card is not the number one card in the major arcana of the tarot, the symbolism of it. The first card is the 0 card, and it's the fool. And it represents beginnings, but it also represents, like, innocence and, like, childish hopes. And that's where it begins, and in a sense, that's where it ends. In the cycle of one's journey. And so in this confrontation, the Gmork is reveling in the fact that the nothing is going to take over. And Atreyu is like, well, why? Why are you, in the, as you described, this child actor? He's like, but why?
Yeah.
And the Gmork looks at him and he's like, because people who don't have hope are easier to control. Because people who don't have hope are easier to control. And then I fucking looked outside, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And
well, you looked at last week. I mean, whichever
every
way you
day,
look at it, yeah.
Well, every day I have to fucking like tell myself, I cannot give in.
Yeah.
And I don't mean on a Anthony Bourdain his death anniversary just passed. I don't mean on that level. I don't mean just, Albert Camus says like, well, the meaning of life is whatever prevents you from killing yourself. That's like, I'm not saying to that level. I'm just saying like to the level of like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna fucking put my shoes on and I'm gonna fucking go to work and I'm gonna fucking pay my bills and I'm gonna put gas in the car and I'm gonna do all that. But what's beyond that? Like, am I going to, what you described for people who are creative? Like, am I going to, I have to have fantasy in order to create, which means I have to, on some level, I have to basically waste time.
Yeah.
By daydreaming. But it's not only that. I mean, like, are you going to water your plants? Like, that's creativity. You know what I mean? Are you going to enjoy your food? Like, versus just shovel it into your fucking mouth, like, as we do. Like, especially in this country, in the United States. All of these things that are like forms of resistance politically, because that's a political statement. Those without hope are easier to control. That's a political statement. And when I was watching this on TV with commercials versus on Tubi with commercials, because I'm not paying for fucking whatever bullshit.
I bought the movie because it was $10, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. $10. Yeah, exactly. $10. Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of like this is one of those films that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
In terms of those lessons, that it is fucking cheesy. Like, I was watching it and then Leslie walked in and it was right in the middle of like one of those kid like cheesy line readings or whatever. And I was like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah,
I really don't. It's just what it is, and because it's not about the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it is, but it isn't. To me, it's about. And I was like, fuck! Like, I gave up to the nothing. So to a certain extent, I did.
We both did.
And she's like, well, yeah, we all do.
Well, I told you the other day when I started this job, a part of me died. Like, I died.
Yeah.
Because I knew, because you and I have talked a little bit about this. You've been at your job for a number of years. I've been at my job, going on 3 years now. The shit that I would put up with today versus what I would put up with 10 years ago. You remember me talking, we've known each other for about 17 years now, which that's pretty amazing for me. That's like one of those things where it's like you go to sleep at one point, you wake up and you're fucking old.
Yeah. You're fucking that turtle.
Yeah. I mean, it is. In the time that we've known each other, I've had about 7 jobs, 8 jobs. I go through jobs because there was a point in my life where I just didn't fucking care. I was going to do the job. I was going to do the job well. But at the same time, if you came at me like a supervisor or a manager did, or a coworker who didn't know what the fuck they're doing, I would tell you flat out to go fuck yourself. I would not have a problem with it because I didn't care if I kept the job or not. I was alive, though. Now I find myself taking it. I find myself shutting up and, ignoring a lot of shit that would have set me over the edge before. And there's a part of me that I hate that. But then there's also I don't know if it's the understanding that this is what you have to do as you get older. Yeah, it is. But I still think watching this movie that the nothingness is a danger. The nothingness is a danger, and it's powerful. But as long as you and I are both talking on this microphone, as long as we're putting words on the page, or when we watch something, we're not just you and I don't watch movies just to escape. Yes, we do escape into a different world, whether it's a Gilliam world or a Scorsese or Herzog or Kurosawa, the great filmmakers and the worlds that they create that give us a certain degree of sustenance, but also a degree of breathing room from what we actually live in on a day-to-day fucking basis. We're not looking for that to be a 2-hour escape from our job. We're looking for that to give meaning to why we do the job, which I think is much more important. I think it's whether I like this movie or dislike this movie, whether I think it's a better movie or could be a better movie, there are lessons to take away from it that's going to make tomorrow and the 8 hours that I'm going to be dealing with at least a little bit easier to I'm going to be able to take those hits a little bit easier tomorrow.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid. It sounds very like, really you take that from a kid's movie? Well, yeah, because the lesson is there, because the lesson is valid. And whether they're talking to a child or they're talking to a grown man, the lessons we learn as kids, sometimes we forget as we grow older, and we need to be reminded.
Because we grow older.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think that when you watch something, yeah, sometimes it's just a stupid good time, but I want the experience to be about more. I want there to be something that I relate to and something that gives me a little bit of hope, because I need it. I need to know that the job, yeah, you and I both need it. Everybody listening to this needs to know that the job isn't everything, and just surviving is not enough. You know what? It's as fucking ridiculous and cheesy as it sounds. I want to get on that fucking lucky dog and fly through the sky and just shit on everybody that's ever fucked with me.
I mean, because there is something to that where it's like, where it becomes like now you're not only preventing the fucking darkness from overtaking you,
mm-hmm.
you're preventing the darkness from overtaking the world, but along with that comes you're trying to set things right. You're setting the balance. You're resetting the balance, and that means that's beyond just maintaining your fucking mental health or whatever. It's like, all right, now we are being active in the world, and we're creating a sense of justice. To me, I see it beyond just like, okay, vengeance, where he's just scaring the kids who picked on him, and he doesn't make them, but they jump into the trash can. It's the way I see it is like now they see the other side of it, and they're like, oh fuck, like now we're in the trash can. We shouldn't have done that. And hoping, and this is me giving, because oftentimes those villains, the kids that from this movie is different, but like a lot of times those villains, and I was telling Leslie about this when we were watching The Equalizer. Um, those fucking villains, like the one like from 13 Assassins, those kind of people don't learn their lesson. Even if they suffer right before they die, they don't learn their fucking lesson because they're just fucked up. They don't see the other side. They don't have empathy. They don't see all that stuff. And this film, to me, is about, right now we do have those, separate from adulthood, from all the responsibilities, all the death of loved ones, you're separating from your friends, you don't have time, you fucking this and that, your back hurts, all of that. We don't have money, the fucking gas prices, all of that. And then you add on fucking AI, we don't know what's fucking real, Wayland Yutani, Tyrell Corporation, authoritarianism, right? Patriarchy, fucking consumer culture, orthodoxy, all that shit. But like these lessons are not only for creative people or workers on the job. It's like these lessons are also for people like who want a fucking romantic partner, or want to make new friends, or whatever the fuck it is. Like these are lessons about trying to manifest the world through your self-belief and like what actions that we can take in our little sphere of influence, no matter how fucking small it is. Beyond the secret and manifesting a parking spot, like manifesting as in like actually trying to do something in the world that's big and small, and I watched this fucking movie and I'm like, shit, like fucking, Leslie's really into the World Cup, and not because she's like super into soccer. I think she's getting more of an appreciation into it. But she's just really, she's like sharing all these things with me, and it's just fucking cool to hear like, oh, this small team from this small colony country, history of colonialism, which I mean, like so many countries are former colonies, like was able to keep this other so-called better team or whatever from scoring, and like that in of itself is just amazing. And this 40-year-old athlete, like I think he was a goalie, like prevented all these kicks from making it in, and this other Mexican soccer player, like he had a fractured skull fucking however many years ago and would never play again, and now he's at the World Cup and he scored, and fucking like all these crazy stories that they are uplifting, and you have this energy of everyone like kind of in this zone, like celebrating something that's international, because this game is obviously like the widest fucking played game, despite a corrupt fucking system that controls the game, which is FIFA. And despite all this other bullshit that politically is happening around it, including how players and teams are getting treated in this country, like that's crazy. But to see the kind of the sense of like the 60s kind of idea of like if everyone's on the same channel, like on the same frequency, like you'll get those vibes. Like there is a vibe. There's a fucking World Cup vibe. And the world, I think, needs to feel that. Unfortunately, like when you see World Cup commercials, it's like obviously it's all consumerism, because it's like selling that vibe, so you can buy this beer, buy these shoes, buy this thing, buy the vibe. But and after the World Cup, I mean, we're going to return to the norm. But it's like, if all these fucking people around the world can be on that vibe, what else could happen?
We do have the ability to come together. We do have the ability to form a cohesive human togetherness that doesn't need to be based on tragedy. It can be a celebration, and it's like I'm not. I am not an optimistic person, and I'm not somebody who believes in we are the world. But I do,
and that's not even my aesthetic. Like,
no,
just not to cut you off, but even just from an aesthetic perspective, like that's not my aesthetic. My aesthetic is more like a little bit more fucked up. You know what I mean? Like I like fucking Alien. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I like H.R. Giger. I'm not like, yeah, let's and I'm not that personality of like I'm not gonna go. I'll do it because I can do it. But trust me, I can do it, guys. But I'm not like I'm gonna go fucking dancing to like Latino music and fucking like really give that celebratory energy and like that's not really me. I'd rather be in that fucking attic with a skeleton with a blanket over my fucking head, like reading that little book. But like, we can all key into those different elements of that energy. Sorry, I cut you the fuck off, but go on with whatever you were gonna say.
No, I think that's the thing. It's like it's that it doesn't have to be this typical. I don't have to. Okay, let me just put it straight out. I don't have to smile to be happy. I don't have to go out of my way to just, hey guys, hey, this is wonderful, and I don't have to, I don't need you telling me what a good job I'm doing. I don't feel like I need to tell you what a good job you're doing. But for me, it's like, still standing. Good. Fuck them. Tell those cocksuckers, look those cocksuckers right in the eye, lie to their faces, and, come out the other end a winner. You beat them. You beat them for one fucking day. And that's what I think life is. For some people, it needs to be the cheery, optimistic. And I don't fault anybody. When I was younger, I did used to look at those people and say, what the fuck is wrong with you? And still a part of me is like, I don't understand what the fuck is wrong with that person, but good for them. Good for them if they are positive enough to be happy in a shit world. Well, part of my happiness is fighting it.
Yeah, I mean that's a very key element. I think that Gen X grew up with. I think Gen X, and I see it online too. I see like this thing where it's like people nowadays are afraid of like being like so-called like cringe. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking just in terms of generalities, I feel like millennials didn't have a problem being cringy. Gen Xers, I think, were like, no, like fuck that. Like, if we're gonna do shit, we have to approach it with a level of distance and a level of irony. Otherwise, like, it's too sincere. And sincere is stupid. We have to be the Simpsons, or we have to be some show on channel. Well, for me, it was Channel 11, but Fox. Like, we have to be Married with Children about this. We can't be fucking. We can't be too like sincere.
Yeah.
David Foster Wallace was calling for a new sincerity at those times because he was like, yeah, we reached our postmodern fucking like endpoint of irony. And so I see these things about like, be cringe, like fuck that, like that's preventing you, like how much of the idea of like not being cringe is preventing you from like being happy or preventing you from like, now there's levels to that because it's also like because it's all online. The conversation is online. Is like how much of that is like performative happiness, performative, oh, I'm cringe, I'm whatever, or the counter to that. What I'm getting at is like ideas like that, or ideas that we grew up with, like yes, authenticity, but to a certain extent, like not selling out is another big one. Where it's like the fear of selling out is so great that like we don't want to fucking like even expose ourselves to the point of like even any form of so-called success or anything, because any version of that is kind of like seen as being fake.
Yeah.
And somehow being fucking it's Kurt Cobain has that lyric, I miss the comfort in being sad. It's like, well, that's being fucking depressed is like real. Being happy is fake. And I question that. Yes, a lot of people pretend to be happy and they're not. That's true. A lot of people embrace being unhappy, and we need to fucking like not embrace that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of times too, it can become like an aesthetic kind of part of the costume. Where, yeah, like I said earlier, oh, you're so like the stereotype of being happy is like, oh well, that's the dumb cheerleading blonde girl.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like there's the brunette girl who's like cynical, she's kind of nerdy, kind of cute, but she's like a bitch, but she's cool. And we get into those kind of like loops, and it's like there are other possibilities, and it's another way for us to prevent ourselves from like developing other sides of our own shit. You know what I mean? And just like I think people who are maybe more about fucking pool parties or something like that, like can learn to be a little bit more pensive sometimes. Not that they aren't, but you know, the stereotype. And at the same time, someone who's a little bit more reading a book like on a blanket by a tree, like can kind of get out of that shell as well. You know what I mean? Like, so it is about the sea of possibilities and not, and having those different elements come together. When you follow these fantasy kind of journeys, like it's all these different kind of characters. It's the different elements that need things. It's the cowardly lion, the he needs courage, the tin man needs the heart, right? It's all those different elements because it's about trying to achieve a level of wholeness. And so you have like the main character, and all of these other elements these other characters represent like aspects of personality, like Winnie the Pooh, like, you know, those are like different, like those can be interpreted as different disorders, like different, animals that the main kid like interacts with.
Yeah.
And just different approaches to life. The way Tigger approaches life is very different from the way Eeyore approaches life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or like, you know, Leslie and I have this thing where it's like, she's Tigger and I'm the rabbit.
Well, Leslie and I have this thing where she's Big Bird and I'm Oscar.
Exactly.
It's like, you know,
exactly.
And it's on point, but yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, don't fuck with my garden, people. Like that. It's that. But if we take different elements on our fucking never-ending story or whatever, we can try to gain this, like, that's what Jung was talking about, the different archetypes and trying to become an integrated person. And it's hard, because how do you fucking become an integrated person when you have to get a root canal? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
How do you get an integrated person how do you become that when you're on hold, or whatever, or you can't remember your password because this password it needs a capital letter and a fucking symbol and a number, and the other one didn't. You know what I mean? And whatever. It's the bullshit that we deal with on a daily fucking basis. That I go back to this movie and I'm just kind of like, even the kid has to do his fucking math that he doesn't like, and so he ditches. And in the long run, like, is that the end of his world because he ditched math? No, but I mean, like, he's gonna have to go back. He's gonna have to go back to math. Like, you have to return to the world from Fantasia, but it's the idea of, again, back and forth, and how much of Fantasia can you integrate into the world, the hopes and dreams. So it's that element of positivity when fucking there's none left. That's basically, or when there's seemingly none left, is basically the message of the film. And it's like, don't be that guy, don't be that person, don't be that character that's going to give up. It's not really about a fight.
No, not at all.
But it's about the fight to continue. It's about the journey to continue to preserve your hopes and your dreams. So it's an internal struggle more than anything. But there is definitely, I think, there are the Gmorks out there that they do need to be fought.
Yeah.
We're not going to pretend that they're not there.
But I think it's important to recognize it as such, and to, what's great about children's movies, which is the same as science fiction, is that they speak to a greater truth that, you can dismiss. It's real easy to dismiss the wonderings, fears, and hopes of a child. Because you, as an adult, you can just say, oh, well, that's just fucking naivete of youth. But in reality, that's the thing that drives us. And, a lot of the things that you were afraid of as a child are the things that will carry on for you to fear as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get away from that shit. But those of us who are aware of those fears learn how to deal with them, learn how to dance with those demons. And you're not always going to win. And this is not a happy, this film doesn't have a happy ending in the sense that everybody lives happily ever after. The happily ever after, as in nothing bad will ever happen again. No, it's going to happen again. The nothingness will come back. Whether it's the nothingness will come back or the devil will regroup and figure out a different angle. The empire will rise again. History teaches us that. And what's great is the understanding that you beat it and you have the strength within you to beat it again, to go at it, to not be afraid of the hits that you're going to take. And that's what was, this kid has to come to a point where he realizes that he does affect the outcome of this book.
Yeah, he matters.
He matters.
He's a part of the story.
Absolutely. And that is, and I think that's the most important thing that any kid who watches this and any adult who needs to be reminded of it can take away from this film. So I wish I had seen this when I was a kid. But seeing it now with the decades of shit that life brings with it, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's pointed, and it's honest. And I don't know. You can't be walking through that swamp of loneliness and sadness thinking that you're going to stop, because it'll take you under.
Mm-hmm.
And shit, we do that every day. But it really does. It really does come down to: are you gonna allow it to sink you? And I think it's important the kids see this. It's a good movie in that respect. It could be better technically, but for what it is, I'm I would show it to a kid. I'd want them to see this. I'd want them to ask me questions. If I had a son or a daughter, I would want them to watch this movie and then come and ask me questions about it, because I don't see myself being dishonest about what life has in store for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is here.
For sure. For sure. I mean, fucking Star Wars, the first installment, is fucking A New Hope, you know?
Yeah.
And as critical as I am of Obama for certain shit, at least the message of the audacity of hope, I think is a good message, because in certain times that's what you need in order to have hope.
Yeah.
Is audacity. So the never-ending story, you're in it, whether you know it or not. BuyMeACoffee.com/WatchRickRamos is the site where, if you give a fuck, you can help support us and keep the lights on the archive of the show, because that's basically what this is. Lipson is the archive. We have 10 years worth of shit. This episode is dedicated to anyone who's ever helped us out and supported us by either listening or donating or being a member. Thank you. Till next time.